Okay. Hi everybody, this is Diane with Phil's Sewing. Today I'm going to introduce you to some new feet that comes with the Pfaff, or that you can purchase with the Pfaff sewing machine. Most of these feet, you know, they're identified for what machine they'll work best with, and so forth. So, and if you have any questions about what foot to buy, if you're interested in this particular foot, make sure you ask Larry or Annette what foot that would be. Today we're going to talk about and show you how to use this foot and some of the fine attributes about the foot itself. So first things first, these right here are some of the stitches. Well, it's actually all of the candlewicking stitches that are built into the machine itself. So we're going to go through some of these and stitch them out so that you can take a look and see, you know, how they stitch out, you know, using this particular foot. Okay. We're also going to set up the machine now. When you're doing, and this is the tip that I like to say, is when you're doing sewing in the machine itself, I like to use like the millimeter settings. And of course you can use whatever settings, be it millimeters or inches, you choose, but in this situation I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make that change and change it from inches to millimeters and vice versa as need be. So I went into the, here I'm going to just click back here so that you can see this. There's a little gear in the right hand corner up there. So you're going to tap on that gear to open up the field. Under settings, you've got all your different categories, your sewing, your embroidery, your machine, your Wi-Fi, my Sewnet, and so forth and so forth. We're going to go into the machine settings, okay? In the machine settings, as you can scroll down here, you can see all the functionality and all the various changes that you can make. But the change we're going to do right now is going into the units category. Click on the inch. So it was set up as an inch. I'm going to change it over to millimeters. After you've changed it, you've got your check mark. You're going to say OK to it and click OK down below here, and we're ready to go. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply our foot onto the machine, or attach it to the machine. But before we do that, we're going to just take a look at this foot and you know, see some of the attributes about this foot. It makes it do so well with a candlewicking style of stitch. Okay, so here you can notice here how it's got the cutout. Okay, it's cut out so that it'll accommodate a wider candlewicking stitch in the back. And then as it comes forward, you know, it also acts as a little guide, you know, when you're embroidering, so you know where to place your stitch. Okay, so we're going to flip it over, and it is a snap-on foot too. Before we turn it over, it's a snap-on foot. It also has the IDT system, so it's got the cutout here, meaning it's meant for to use with the IDT system on the Pfaff. Okay. When you flip it over, you can see how there's a deeper groove underneath the foot. Okay, so a lot of your feet, like your standard sewing foot, is flat across the bottom. Okay, this one is not. This one has that cutout groove, and so with that cutout groove, it will not, you know, squash down your stitch after it stitches it out. So it gives that height, which is really, really quite wonderful, to make sure that that stitch is formed perfectly and stays as perfect as it's stitched, you know, so that it doesn't put pressure on that stitch to weight it down and to make it a flat look. So instead we have a more of a 3D type of a look of a stitch. Okay, so that's that groove. Okay, and the beauty of that groove and how that really contributes to the final result of that stitch. Okay, so enough said about that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to attach it to the machine. So like I said, it's a snap-on foot. So we're going to come up here. We're going to, you can lower your presser foot, or you could just snap it down as such. Okay, So now I have a different design up or different stitch up. So, well, we're going to change that, and that's why the needle is in the left position at this point to accommodate the design or the stitch. I shouldn't say design. It's a stitch that we have up on this on the workspace. Okay, so to get to the stitches that we're going to use, so what we're going to do is like the third icon down. So 1, 2, 3, open it up. This opens up into your load stitch category. Now in here you have your utilities, your quilts, your needle art, your satin, and you're just going to scroll over as such with your finger. Okay, scroll over, and so you got techniques, monogram, and so forth. The candlewicking stitches are located under the additional field, okay, under the additional category. And so they're stitches 1 through 11, okay. All of these, you know, stitch out beautiful, as I showed you earlier in the opening. So we're just going to experiment with some of them right now. One thing I like to do is I like to stabilize. Anytime you use any of the decorative stitches or any of the stitches in general, I like to apply some kind of a stabilizer underneath it, because what happens with it is it stabilizes that fabric, and every time you stitch out you're going to get a beautiful stitch every time. So you can try it for experimentation purposes, and I recommend that you do that. Stitch it on a piece of fabric that isn't stabilized, and then put a piece of stabilizer behind it, and then stitch it again, and you'll see the difference that it makes. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead, open it up, and I'm just going to place my fabric underneath. And in this situation, I'm going to use the side of my foot as my guide marker, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, lower it down, my presser foot down, okay? And go ahead and choose a stitch. So I'm going to choose the very first stitch on here. This stitch is a little bit narrower, okay? And it's not as heavy as some of the other stitches. As you progress up the line and go to, say, like 11, 10, or 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, those are a little thicker stitches, and you're going to notice that. Because one thing I really think is a good idea, stitch them all out and put it in a stitch book. If you haven't done that, I would recommend doing that, because it gives you an idea when you're looking for a particular stitch for your project, to look at those different stitches and see which one would suit that project that you're working on at that time. So anyway, I'm going to just go ahead and do the first one, which is number 1. Okay, we can adjust our width, we can adjust our length, but we're going to let it go with the default settings. But just to let you know that this is all doable. Okay, so you make your adjustments to your width and your length. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and stitch out that particular stitch. Okay, there it is. Stitch it up beautiful, and you can see over here. This one was number 7 in the category, and this one is number 1. So you can see the difference in that width. Okay, what you can do if you want a heavier style or look on your stitch itself, use a heavier weight thread. This particular thread right here is a 40 weight. So there's nothing wrong with trying like a 35 weight thread, or you can even do finer threads as well. Maybe a 60 weight thread if you wanted it a little finer than what it shows up after you stitch it out. So that's always something that you should experiment with. Stitch it out on a piece of fabric first, and you'll determine how it's going to look using the same fabrics that you're going to use in your project, as well as the same threads, and also utilizing the same bobbin thread too. In this particular one, I just used the bobbin thread, but again, if you wanted it a little heavier, if you were to use, you know, the thread that you use for your top thread and wind your bobbin with it, it would give it a heavier look as well. Another thing that you can do with this, you can use different thread options. Some of your decorative design or decorative stitches and utilize them with this particular foot as well. So I mean, if you've got a heavier stitch like these, this particular one would be heavier, so that would do justice for that particular stitch as well. So putting on that candle wicking foot, you know, that way it won't knock down those stitches when it stitches them out. Okay. There's also an accessory book that'll show these different feet that we're going to be covering in the next few sessions. On page 36, here it talks about the candle wicking for the IDT system and so forth. So you might want to, you know, and to get one of these books and to kind of look into it, because it also has little different suggestions that you might you know, want to use that foot for. So it's always a good resource. That's all I'm saying. Okay, it's a good resource. So it just, and this one here is on page 30 or page 36 of this book. It shows the candle wicking for the IDT system. Okay. So I just want to thank you for tuning in to this video, and if you have any questions concerning the use of this foot, or if you any other questions about feet in general, just go ahead and contact Larry and Annette at Phil's, and they're more than happy to help you. Okay, thanks, and until next time.